Well, good morning, folks. Welcome to a rather wet morning on the farm. It did not snow last night, thankfully, but it is raining. So the surfaces are a little bit slippery because it was down right at zero, so a little bit of ice on the ground. Anyways, why 5:30 in the morning? 5:30 in the morning is the witching hour around here. We've had more lambs born at 5:30 in the morning than any other time of day, except maybe 2:30 in the afternoon. That's another good one. But so I'm just going to grab the pig feed. We'll go over, visit the piggies, and I'll check on the mamas to see if anybody else is having lamb. Our next due date's not until May 7th, so we've got some time, but every once in a while somebody will surprise you. So today is truly one of the few days that we actually proclaim as, you know, the biggest days on the farm. There's going to be a whole bunch from here right in a row, but today is the day we collect our meat chicks, so we're expecting a phone call from the post office early here, as soon as they open, probably right around 7 o'clock in the morning. So Carmen's gonna run to town and pick those up, and she'll get them put in the little chicken house there. We've got that nice and toasty warm, and if needs be, we can actually pull a water trough out just to use as additional brooder space. Or if we need to get them enclosed a little bit tighter because there's maybe too much room to run around, we can also put them in a water trough. So empty, obviously. Pigs nowhere to be seen. Sheep really angry because I didn't bring them grain. And it looks like I forgot to turn the water off last night, so really successful morning. I'm hoping they're snuggled in the shelter up underneath the hay. So let's go in for a dive. There's one little piggy. Oh boy. You know what to think. You're pretty wild yet, hey? There's both little piggies. These are Duroc pigs, so never had them before, so we'll see how these ones make out. But it sounds like I'm not gonna get away without giving the sheep some grain either. They are sure bellering. Okay, see you later, piggies. Tell you, some mornings it's actually pretty hard for me to know if there's been any lambs because there's just so many of them running around. So pretty much just looking for somebody without an ear tag at this point. Thelma, you're next. You and Olga. Where's Olga? Olga's up here. She's gonna be any day now for sure. So Carmen won't be going to town to get the chicks unless I fix that issue. We haven't had a flat tire here in a long time, actually. Well, I should say a long time, but more than a couple months. Last one was on my pickup. This one's been kind of plaguing us for a while. It was a really slow leak, one that we really couldn't find where it was leaking from. Then all of a sudden it went down in like 3 days, and now it's sitting there flat. So I'm gonna drag out the air compressor, get it pumped up. At least we can get to town, get the chicks. And then maybe tonight I'll pull that off and see if we can't find us a hole to plug. Well, I just checked in on the little chicken house. Everything's nice and warm in there, so we're ready to go. You know, it's kind of strange. They say April showers bring May flowers, but it's the 29th of April, and this is the first rainfall we've actually had, so, and that's probably why it's not a shower. It's probably why it's just trying to play catch up for the whole month, and we'll just get it all at once here. Okay, open it up. Wow, look at all those chickens.
Oh no, no, we know.
Well, looks like we got 75 in the box. We better count them and see. We usually get a couple extra. Say hi to your piggies.
Mommy! You hungry, piggy?
They're hungry?
Yeah.
We had a complete switch in the weather here today. It started off the day with some freezing rain. It looked like it was going to endure for the better part of the day, but right around midday it kind of switched. The wind changed from the east to the west. Everything warmed right up, and it settled out at about 16 degrees. Still a little bit breezy, but it's actually really nice. So we're going to run over to the little chicken house here right away and check in on our chicks to see how they're making out. All right, so I'm here in the brooder. It's funny because the chicks, you can tell I'm in here because the chicks making all the noise. and every time I speak, they just like scatter. But it looks like everybody is doing fantastic. Check the temperature. We are sitting at 32 degrees Celsius, so that's really good. Temperature in the brooder should be 32 to 35 degrees Celsius for that first week. And then after that, you can drop down 3 degrees per week until they're like three weeks old. They should be all feathered out by then. And then at that point, you can consider putting them outdoors, depending on the time of year you get them. Here where we are, it can still be kind of volatile throughout May. May long weekend is kind of renowned for being snowy or miserable, maybe even minus 30. You never really know what you're going to get until Saturday afternoon of the May long weekend. But we're hopeful. I mean, so far, spring weather has, well, the whole winter and then into spring has been relatively mild, just with the odd, you know, really bad spell. But we haven't really had sustained poor weather. So we're thinking things are going to look pretty good for us here. So now, if you're wondering if you're actually maintaining the proper amount of temperature inside of your brooder, there's a really easy way to tell. If you don't, like, we've got a thermometer right underneath the heat lamp so we can see exactly what it is. But two easy ways to tell is really based on the chicks entirely. So as you can see, they're all pushed away in the corner now. That's just because I'm in here, and for some reason they're not too keen on my voice. So they scatter, right? And they go to the farthest reaches of the room here. But when I opened the door at first, they were evenly spaced throughout the brooder. So they weren't gathered underneath the heat lamp. They weren't concentrated there. And they weren't at the furthest out reaches of the room. So that tells me that it's not too hot and it's not too cold, and they're just able to space nice and evenly. So here's why it's super important. So it kind of makes sense, right, that you don't want a bird to be too cold, but why? What does that make a difference for? Well, it's not just hypothermia that we're dealing with here. Even if you're just a few degrees too cold, it can have a negative effect on the growth of your chicks. Because two reasons. One reason is when they're cold, they're less likely to drink water, they're less likely to eat food, so they're not going to gain. The second reason is, and it kind of ties into that, if they're expending energy sitting there shivering, trying to stay warm, well, that's energy they can't put into growing, right? And if they're already not eating food and they're using their energy elsewhere, you're just going to get weak, sickly birds. Not to mention, if in the first 3 weeks of their life, they're exposed to extreme cold weather, and I say extreme cold weather, I'm talking like 5 degrees too cold, makes a big difference when you can't regulate your own body heat, right? That can actually have a significant effect on heart health, especially in broiler chicks like these Cornish Cross here. So you've heard about this, you know, when they get to be 8, 9 weeks old, or even as young as 7 weeks old, heart failure in the broiler chickens. So the first 3 weeks of their life, keeping them the proper temperature is critical for a strong, healthy heart later on in life, so that, you know, you're protecting your investment down the road. All right, so many of you are familiar with our big uddered mosquito. Not a good time. Many of you are familiar with Sharon, our big uddered sheep. So because she's been having such swelling of the udder, it's difficult for her lambs to drink. Because it's difficult for her lambs to drink, she swells more, and when they do suck, it gets kind of chapped and very irritated. So I've been milking her out. The one side her lambs are able to get everything they need off of. I think the rest of it they're just stealing from other ewes. So I end up with half a bucket of milk that I can't really do much with. Well, we got the piggies yesterday. Yes, special treat. Lots of protein, lots of butter fats in sheep milk. In fact, it's really, really high in fats. So we're gonna give this to the piggies and see if they like it. What I think is fantastic about those two little piggies, they were only just born in February, so they're pretty small yet, but they've already been starting to till this up. Now this is fantastic, because I mean, I intended to come in here and do some cleaning out anyways, but if they can loosen all this up for me, it's gonna make life a lot easier for me, getting that material into a wheelbarrow and off to a compost pile. So thank you, piggies. I think it's gonna be a few weeks until we get these two figured out to come to a bucket and just kind of get that fear out of them. right now everything's so different, right? But you can tell, look at their snouts, they're starting to pick that up. They can smell that milk in that bucket. They want it. They want it real bad. But it's the fear, right? The unknown. What happens if I cross the yard here? Is this guy gonna hop the fence and eat me for breakfast? So they'll probably wait for me to disappear until they realize that I'm actually the guy that brings the food. You got a little taste of that milk there. Oh, he knows it's good, don't you? Well, it's closing in on 11 o'clock at night here. Boy, it has been a big day, let me tell you. And I just finished washing 24 dozen eggs. Yeah, 24 dozen eggs by hand. And boy, does that ever separate the boys from the men, let me tell you. Hands are just cramping up. Anyways, that's done. And it just kind of got me thinking, like, every once in a while we'll run into somebody who has homestead envy. And they say, oh boy, it sure must be nice to have everything you have. And you know, and they allude to it just, you know, being a money thing. And, you know, honestly, there's nothing here is bought with money. Everything's bought with time. Everything's bought with effort, sweat, right? It doesn't come, you know, you can't just chuck money at a problem and make it succeed. The success really comes from, you know, getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning and going out there and doing checks. It comes from getting off work after a 10 or 12 hour day, slamming some supper as quick as you can, getting the kids to bed, and then getting out there and working till 11, 11:30, sometimes midnight, only just to, you know, get a few hours of sleep and then get right back at it. There's not a, you know, the differentiation between the hobby farm and the homestead. That's really where it comes down to, right? Is the passion to put in the hours, to put in the time, to put in the effort. You know, and this comes with a lot of sacrifice too. I mean, around here, we don't get a lot of ass time around here. There's not a lot in the way of entertainment. I'm an avid reader, and, you know, it just was kind of a shift now from reading, you know, a fiction book to a more realistic, say a book about chickens or a book about sheep or something like that. Or maybe it's not a book. Maybe it's just a university study on pasture pigs, something like that, you know, where you can return that value. You can soak something up in your downtime, what little downtime you have, that can then benefit you later on, big picture wise. Anyways, that's my that's my lesson for the day. It has been a day, and like I said, it's just after 11 o'clock here now, so we're gonna call that one a wrap. I'm gonna go fix up a cup of tea. So I hope you have a fantastic evening. We'll see you tomorrow.